last year. Unbelievably exciting company. In addition to that, we have a number of portfolio companies in Hong Kong. So we have Hong Kong Commons, which is a peer co-work startup community. And we have 2 campuses. We have a very different approach to that sort of thing. We have a very cool little e-commerce site called Lots of Buttons, which is the largest online retailer of buttons. Very cool Hong Kong company idea. We are very active in social enterprise and education. So we have a suit company, a bespoke suit company that we created to help young people work through drug rehabilitation and to have living, to be able to, despite a criminal record, a drug problem, and no education, to be able to make real money indoors without breaking the law. We have about 13 other portfolio companies. These days we've been on the IP Working Committee for the Hong Kong government, IP Trading Committee for the Hong Kong government, and we work extensively with the investing chain. And we support great entrepreneurs like Josh.
Do you sleep?
Depends on the day.
Yeah.
But we're all entrepreneurs, right? Sleep's overrated, right?
Yeah. No, really. I mean, I email you sometimes at 1 a.m. and you're like on it like that.
See, and if you email me at 3 p.m., no response.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I stay up to 1
1 to 4, it's good.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about your involvement with TEDx, because that's something that everybody knows. Yeah, you didn't mention that one.
Sorry,
TEDx Hong Kong. How did you get involved in that, and what's the story there?
So we just had one of our TEDx events yesterday, TEDx Live. We streamed an hour and a half of actual TED conference content from Vancouver, including half of the Snowden surprise video interview. And we had 4 phenomenal speakers. We had over 1,000 applicants. It was a free event. We had 300 people that we admitted in. I became involved with a good friend, Gino Yu, who runs the multimedia master's degree in multimedia program at Hong Kong University. And he's the actual original license holder for the TEDx Hong Kong license. Great guy. But he's a bleeding heart academic. He loves all that stuff. In a prior life, we owned MTV Japan, so I like things bigger. And so I became a co-curator starting with TEDx Hong Kong 2012. And so we do now TEDx Hong Kong Education, and TEDx Hong Kong Live is streamed from the actual TED Global Conferences. We have another one coming up. This is going to be the largest TEDx in Hong Kong yet, at the Sunbeam Theater, May 31st, TEDx Hong Kong Education. We've already confirmed a number of amazing speakers, including world-class neuroscientists, an Academy Award-winning computer animations, robotics expert, some really inspiring, special needs educators, and you guys are more than welcome. We would highly encourage you guys to come. This is a very cool event. But really, it's a very important part of what we do to try to help pull the community together, and that's why we mix things, small events, free events. We try to keep the costs as low as possible, but make them scale so that we can multiply our impact. MWI was a supporting organization at our last one in December.
So let's back up a little bit. Let's go back into your history. Where do you come from? Where were you born? Where were you raised? What was the environment like?
Sure.
What made you into an entrepreneur?
Wow, that's a great question. I was born in Korea. I am a 1.5er. I don't know if you know what that is. We landed in LA, when I was 4.5 years old. Apparently, the first thing I said in school was, the first thing I did was laugh at the rest of my classmates because they didn't speak Korean. But I grew up in LA, went to school out east, swore to my father, who went to law school in Korea, I would do anything other than be a lawyer. But afterwards, for a few years, sure enough, I went to Columbia Law School and became a buyout lawyer in New York. Did that for 4 years. And then I started venture capital 3 months after the internet bubble burst in Palo Alto University in High Street. It was back then a big fund. It was $700 million. They'd spent 2/3 of it, and most of it was written down. And so, as a venture guy who did a lot of LBO work, I ended up doing lots of turnarounds here and in Asia, where you absolutely had to make very quick battlefield decisions. You really try to figure out how to extract maximum value for every dollar. Within a year, they moved me to Asia. I've lived in Japan for 6 years, Beijing for a year, Korea for a year, and now Hong Kong over 5 years. We've done big and small deals, and a few good deals, but some really bad deals. We own MTV in Japan. We started Starbucks in China. Good Morning Securities in Korea. We were the first institutional investors in SMIC, the first semiconductor foundry in China. All sorts of things, but lots of random tough deals as well. We moved to Hong Kong because we had my wife was, our family was blessed with twins, and our daughter lost her water, in womb at week 18. And medical care in Japan is atrocious if you are in need for acute care or special need, early intervention sort of thing. So we lost our son, who was born 600 grams. His head was this big, it's like a little Martian. We knew we had to get him out of Japan for him to actually have a chance. And so before he was too old, we looked for a place, where you could actually pay for services. Imagine that, right? This was during the height of the financial crisis, so we were in no mood to move back to the United States. And just kind of everything lined up for us to be here in Hong Kong. So we landed in Hong Kong. My first thing was, again, just because of what my experience was, I was the chief turnaround guy for a publicly listed company in Hong Kong. Former employers, at this private equity fund, they got into a deal, and they weren't able to control it. They needed to get out. So I worked on that for 2 years, getting a lay of the land. We exited that investment, and then I realized just how special Hong Kong could be. About 3.5 years ago, met some. The real pioneers of this new generation of startups, Casey Lau, John Buford really at his Food HK original campus in Wanchai. And I started to see kind of all the things that I would take for granted in Los Angeles, you just could not in Hong Kong. And it was really keeping entrepreneurs and great ideas from being able to flower here. So, we started Hong Kong Commons to address that need. We don't want any freeloaders, but wanted to create an environment that was as flexible and as hassle-free as possible at the very lowest possible cost, so that if we were full, we would be marginally losing a few dollars, so that people could just focus on their startups. Then we realized that people were spending way too much money to make their companies, so we Walmarted that, right? So we started a break-even business where we will give you your company, including the government fees, including the green box, for effectively 300 euro, 3,200. I think that's how we met, right? You need to set up your company. And then, we like to invest. You have our little family holding company and a few bucks. And back then it was hard to find companies to invest in, so we started making some up. We thought we saw some really interesting threads and some interesting people, so we just started spraying and praying. And fortunately, most of them are still around. They're all revenue positive. They're all break-even now or profitable. And so we're now focused on really building on this foundation out. I'm doubly committed and confident that Hong Kong is probably the smartest place to be if you're an entrepreneur right now. I think when I see all these folks from Europe and from the Americas and guys like you and me here, I just spent 2 weeks in Europe. I was at DLD in Munich, at Venice, and speaking at H+ Farm, the hottest incubator in Italy. Davos, we met a bunch of people there. I spoke at Potsdam University in Berlin, HEC in Paris. I finally visited our Lithuanian office. Then I just came back after speaking at the Russian Economic Forum in Krasnodar University. All roads need to come here. So for all the right reasons. So we just established a great friendship and a relationship with H+ Farm, the place where I spoke in Venice in January. And we've already committed, we've already penciled $1 million Hong Kong dollar investment into one of their startups. Very, very smart company. We hope to announce new locations in KL and in Taipei and other high-value locations.
Now, is this all you, or is this through partners and other companies that you've worked with?
Great question. We've tried everything. And I think depending on the company, some things and sometimes you just have to do it your way or by yourself. Sometimes you work with partners. And I can't say what generally works or doesn't work. For me, one of the things I've tried to do is, the ideas tend to be my ideas. I don't want people to buy into an idea. It's not Silicon Valley. And I'm not going to go work with them for my idea. So we'll have a team. So I almost have an internal consulting team that we can say, go work on this, do the research, figure out the math. Then we have our own subsidiary in Lithuania that has a lot of software developers, a lot of different skills. So we can kind of throw things together and play with things to get a proof of concept. And then we'll put the first dollar in, and until something actually kind of germinates and you can actually start seeing the first fruits, we don't want to talk to anybody about money. It's always good to have outside investors after you're able to take that initial risk to be able to validate what someone else thinks your company is worth or your work is worth. Our social enterprise fund, I'm sure is a great example. We spent a year. I'm not a tailor. I don't know anything. I go to Costco to buy my shirts, right? So, but when I landed here in Hong Kong 5 years ago, I'm from LA, so the only thing we do well is get high in LA, right? The capital and the king of the drug culture. But unfortunately, that means all of us in LA have family or friends with the substance abuse problem. We know intimately well what it is like to deal with successful drug rehabilitation. It is not easy, and it's a lifelong thing. Front of the brain knew better when you were in Hong Kong. Sure, if you see no hope, why not get wasted today? Saw that in Japan, in different ways. But I saw this big front page. There's not front page. Yeah, it was a front page article saying drug abuse is skyrocketing among young Hong Kong kids. And being a lawyer, they teach you about really looking at the assumptions and scrutinizing numbers. And when the Hong Kong government gives you a number for drug addiction, it's defined as those individuals who voluntarily report to the police that they have a drug problem. So that number is 16,000. I actually think the number is more like 150,000. And it used to be very soft drugs like ketamine, special K stuff, and lots of cold things that you and I need right now, codeine and things like that. But the meth production has moved from just like all the other forms of manufacturing, from North America to Asia. There's so much meth and ice being cooked in Shenzhen right now. It's kind of not funny. So what we know and what we've experienced in the U.S., we know it's coming. If you go to Bangkok and ride in a taxi, they say now about half of those guys are fried. They're lit. So not fried, half of those guys are cooking or are baked. A few days later, I saw another article that talked about how tailoring, is a dying industry. And they described why it was not a cool thing to do anymore. So the job description sucks if you're a normal kid with a life and an iPhone and a girlfriend. It's detail-oriented, it's structured, it's repetitive, and the hours are long. And then a light went off in my head, so that's the inspiration part. Where if you look at that description, that's exactly something that you would want in successful drug rehab. From the minute these kids get up to the minute, with the second after the lights go off, they don't have a spare solitary minute, right? They're in group and they're in activity. We know this to be true. So the idea is, well, what if we turn that liability into an asset? What if we said the harder your addiction, the more OCD you were, so that what if that makes you a better tailoring candidate? Especially if we can find you while you're in lockdown at a lockdown facility like a Caritas or St. Barnabas or some of our partners. But then with that idea, we spent a year beating up the idea because we knew nothing about tailoring. So we went to Mirador Mansion and tried to learn more, meet tailors, we went to rehab centers, building a model. How do you reinvent this throwaway business and these throwaway people, just to see if you can. Then how do we stick it in, stick somebody's eye, and say, look, we don't think the current model of social enterprise works. We don't think charities work because they don't really do anything except make you feel better for 30 seconds, give it $1 or whatever. So after a year, we announced, on strategy, a for-profit social enterprise, but with the commitment that the shareholders will never take any money from it. I don't pay myself. But part of the reason why we did that is to be able to show that a social enterprise should be able to make real money And if you can't afford to pay 17% in tax on the income, on the profit of your work, which is all Hong Kong asks for, there's no VAT, right? And there's no progressive this, and there's not all this crazy stuff. You really are a charity. You have no business conduct for profit. You can't do that. I mean, that's the lowest tax burden I've ever seen in this world. And then to be able to figure out how do we make it scale, because we're venture guys. We're not interested in spending a year of expensive time to be able to provide a living wage for 20 people. I don't remember what your question was, sorry.
This is all interesting now, so.
It's crazy. So that kind of stuff, I'm not going to ask someone in next. So we tell people about the idea. They go, wow, that's pretty cool. We're putting an impact round together now. But again, just another of these bugaboos, right? And we know what the stories are. We don't like broken stories. Impact investing is not investing. It's still charity. People don't expect the money back. So we're like, let's not talk about valuations or equity. Let's talk about fixed income. Let's talk about debt. I understand debt. Chinese people understand debt. Let's put a high yield on it, like 8%. Something not crazy, but not nothing. And let's put it on the balance sheet of the company so that people know we owe money. And we use these as little vehicles, small dollars. We just opened a location on Hollywood Road because we wanted to. You guys, if you've been on the escalator, there's a little octopus stand, and right next to it is this window. So we turned that into a workshop so that, Von Amsterdam's the first company to actually make something other than a drink on Hollywood Road in decades. But, it was $200,000 to deposit, a little setup. But we use those little things as a way to invite other people that we like. Come invest, but I don't want your money in equity because I'll never be able to give it back to you. So it was an easy deal. 6 easy installments, 10% interest. Here you go. And he'll get his money back with profit as a social investment. It's very rare and unfortunately rare to be able to say, I actually put money in the social enterprise, I got my money back, and I made money.
Tell us about some of your other businesses that you're working on. So, tell us about Hanson Robotics. This is
Sure.
the newest one. This is pretty exciting. Tell us more about that.
Yes, we're super excited about it. So Dr. Hanson's been working on the hardest part of robotics. So if you look at what Silicon Valley does, they're trying to force you to become more like machines. Right? And we're at DLD and they have one of those goofy things on wheels with the LCD monitor bothering you, right? But there's a mountain of clinical data that confirms, the more human the robot looks, the more human something looks, the easier it is for humans to relate. This is kind of common sense. The clinical data confirms it. So Dr. Hanson's been focusing on making robots more like us. Between not only the software, the expression engines, and the ability to real time, just make you feel like you're dealing with a real human being and being able to respond to you with random, not linear, cut and paste, comments, like Siri, right? But also the hard part, fusing art, software, and physical, mechanical robotics into head forms. We focus on heads only that are as close to real human beings as you've ever seen. Things that you've only seen like an avatar on film because it's not real. We have patented technology that do things like rubber, which is a nano material that we use for the skin that overcomes some of the traditional hurdles of making lifelike robots. So as you can imagine, human skin is actually quite porous and it's quite elastic. So when you smile or you frown or you cry, the amount of energy your muscles need to be able to manipulate the muscles, and the skin attached to the muscles is actually quite small. If you look at, you have kids, right? So if you've been to the Hall of Presidents at Disneyland, Disney World in Orlando, what we're used to seeing are goldfish people, like zombie golems, right? So, the eyes blink and the mouth moves, but it's obviously a joke. And Disney spends $1 million for that pathetic joke. And it's been like that for decades because the Hall of Presidents, you can see the first one and the latest one, and they all suck. They're not close to being expressive enough for us to say, wow, that's pretty cool. Part of that is because the skin, they use silicone and latex, which are very hard to stretch. It requires a tremendous amount of energy to manipulate. So rubber uses 95% less energy. With less energy, we're able to pack tons of brushless servo motors into a head, and to be able to replicate every human muscle group and therefore every human gesture in small, tiny, minute increments so that it really feels natural.
Yeah, I've seen the videos. They're kind of freaky.
A little scary, right?
Yeah. So what's the real commercial opportunity there other than selling them to Disney?
Well, we'll sell them to everybody but Disney. It'll depend on we're looking at different stages. Right now, one of the reasons why we established our office in Hong Kong is in terms of theme parks, entertainment, retail, the next meta facilities. All of that new construction, those new locations are going to be in Asia. There are no new theme parks in France. There are no new theme parks in California. It's doesn't make any financial sense. Right? Those are going bankrupt and being bought on the cheap and rehab by private equity guys. I think depending on who you ask, there may be 200 new theme parks in Asia over the next 10, 20 years. Guys like Wanda, they make big money, just like Hollywood's moving here, right? It's all entertainment for emerging middle class. So retail, imagine at the convention center, a human-looking customer service person that's got great top-notch language identification software, great language libraries and general AI, but with a twist, right? Imagine call centers and load balancing so that if someone approaches and starts speaking to this human-looking customer service robot in English, I know that you're speaking English. I'm going to talk to you, and if I can answer your questions based on my automated AI, you're happy, I'm happy. But I've already alerted my English-speaking language call center down in the Philippines that there's a customer here. We'll pay twice as much as the regular call center guy to make sure that we have very, very seamless transition. Our software then, in case the operator has to get involved in a real human sense, we'll have a webcam that reads me as the service operator in Manila, and every expression, every smile, every mannerism that I have is translated into a three-dimensional physical avatar. So you are having a real human experience, right? And the minute you go, thank you, and move off, and a Japanese guy comes and starts speaking Nihongo, right? If I can identify that as Japanese, alert a Japanese call center, right? All of a sudden you have a Babylon, the Tower of Babylon in one, right? I imagine nurses, low cost, so that's the near-hanging fruit. That doesn't require a terrible amount of artificial intelligence. Over the next few years, if you look at the future of robotics, it's in service robotics, it's not industrial robotics. That's over and done. The Japanese, the Westerns, everybody knows the benefits of it, but it's done. 80%, if you believe the Koreans anyway, 80% of robotics in the future will be service robotics. The dollar value will be in services because that's where the people are not efficient. If you can imagine the two big bugaboo economies or industries that dominate global GDP. The world's GDP is about $72 trillion. Of the $72 trillion, 14.5 healthcare, 14 education. If you've ever been to a hospital, or if you remember school, I think most people would say 90% of that is wasted or ineffective. It's kind of scary.
I thought half my teachers were robots when I was
There you go. Well, that means they were actually effective. No. So if you look at the money and the numbers, I'm from LA. You go to Kaiser Permanente, all those nurses are Filipino. And God bless them, they're wonderful. That same Filipino, there are 300,000 Filipinos in the Philippines who've already passed the U.S. boards waiting for their lottery ticket. Guaranteed lottery ticket. They make $300 to $400 US per month in Manila as a registered nurse having passed the U.S. boards. As soon as that wonderful lady arrives in Los Angeles, it costs the U.S. taxpayer $6,000 to $8,000 US for that same wonderful person. It's a 20x, that's a total lottery. Unfortunately, we're broke. We're just broke. Can't afford it. And costs will continue to rise. Imagine using human robotics, but you don't violate any no-nos. You never touch the patient. Whether it's cloud technology or facial recognition, using facial recognition, our AI and our human faces on low load or no load bodies, so they're very inexpensive to make. You never touch the patient. I can first identify that's Josh. He's in his right bed. I know what's wrong with you. I know what your vitals should be. I know the thresholds, right? Green, yellow, red. I know that if I can detect something going wrong with you earlier, the cost of, right? The cost of healing you or rectifying that situation is much lower. I know that that robot can provide much better service and make far fewer mistakes and not pass you any diseases because it's not an organic entity, and work 24 hours a day, right? To do AI assessment, I think you're feeling a little warm. I'll go, Josh, how are you doing? You seem a little warm. Are you doing okay? And what is medicine? It's regurgitating what you memorized. I know your diagnosis. If you have elevated temperature, I need to ask you these 12 questions. Based on what you ask, I have a preliminary diagnosis. That same wonderful Filipina is still in Manila. Let's pay her double, $600, right? She's operating Manila, right? Load balance, like Ethernet. She knows now that Josh has a problem, and now she's paying attention but not jumping in yet. As soon as the robot's finished diagnosing with a preliminary diagnosis, a human being nurse, telemedicine, right, who's actually observed the patient interaction, has your complete file history again, passed the U.S. boards, so she's actually certified. Do a second opinion, and then call Nurse Jackie, who's physically there. Say, Nurse Jackie, here's the deal. Here's what she said. Like, if you want the video, here you go. Nurse Jackie will then be the first one to touch if necessary. Josh will say, yeah, I think there's something going on. Let me call Dr. James. Right? You think about what a nurse does because it's that kind of business. 90% of what she does on a given day, other than emergency medicine, right? Not nursing. It's administrative, it's technical, it's all this other stuff. And then you have to multiply that by 3 shifts. Right? We want to be able to introduce human-looking robots for $80,000 US, right? With a couple $1,000s a month service fee to run 24 hours a day. We are targeting a return on investment in 5 months to produce 10 times better service. Because that nurse will come by every 30 minutes to make sure it's right? 10 times better results, fewer infections, fewer mistakes, dosage is always right, for nothing. Because after five months, the hardware is fully depreciated. It's free. Service life, 3 or 5 years, that can change everything. Same thing for special needs, autism, Alzheimer's. Things where right now human beings pay a lot of money to do very repetitive things.
All of a sudden, iRobots looking more realistic, and it's a whole different take on writing machines now.
Absolutely, and I think I don't know what the future, looks like. I think all the big guys are making big money, being very aggressive in the space. The Googles, the Facebooks. I'm particularly excited about enhanced robotics simply because it gets the human part right. This is the new interface. Human beings that can act, robots that can look like human beings, act like human beings without any compromise, and for us to really kind of be open about it. We'll do the head and the eye. We're publishing an open source API, okay, and standards so that you can pop our head on any body, whether it's a ball bot from Bossa Nova to a Boston Dynamics, Terminator robot, whatever. We're not. It's just a PC, right? I mean, it's a tool. If you've ever seen Dr. Hansen's lectures and these kind of graphs, there's the Moore's law thing. And I'm not saying that transistor density is the same as human neural density, but depending on whose graph you're looking at, transistor density in terms of equivalent to human brain neural networks will exceed the human brain in the next few years. Right? We've seen that in the massive fields of data that's getting connected real time. Right? I would actually venture to say things have already changed. It's irreversible. And if you slap that onto what the Snowden guy is saying about your privacy, which is basically the same thing that our friends at Smith said 10 years ago, that you have no more privacy. I think the revolution's already happened, and we're just waiting for it to play out. And which way it goes, we'll have to see.
Let's switch topics a little bit. Let's talk about Hong Kong and the startup environment here. You get to see a lot of businesses come through your doors because you have a co-work space. You see the community, you invested in some businesses. What do you think are the opportunities for startups here in Hong Kong? You said this is where everybody needs to come. Why?
Yes. So the topic of my talk at all of these locations in Europe was Hong Kong is the hottest startup city in Europe. Okay, so let's just start with some fundamentals. Okay, there's only 3 money center cities in the world: London, New York, and Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the only money center city with money. Number 1. Number 2, if you look at every major economy or every city as a casino, which is what they are, they're trying to draw more action to their table. You always ask the same questions: how much does the house keep that I want to lose? That kind of stuff, right? How good is it? As an entrepreneur, and I'm pretty libertarian about this stuff, I think it's essential for a house, a casino, okay, or a venue, or a marketplace. They're all the same, right? Different words, but the same thing. The question is, can they deliver 3 essential ingredients for successful entrepreneurs? Number 1, do I have freedom to move people? Do I have freedom to move ideas? And do I have freedom to move money? Right? And if you see what's happening in the world today, right? The U.S., you and I know. If I wire you $11,000, I'm on the list.
Yeah.
Right? In Europe, if you want an internet connection at a hotel, you have to go get a physical ticket. They want to know everything. So there's this wrapper. Not only do these 3 rules have to be true, how does the capo, okay? Does Tony Montana play a fair game where he's not competing with you? Right? So Hong Kong says this, right? It's a different 3. Respect the fact that I'm a real government. Therefore, number 1, I'm the only one that can print money or get other people to print money for me. Number 2, I can determine whether I want a monopoly on physical violence, legal physical violence. And number 3, all I'm asking from you is to send a little thank you Christmas card or whatever card, holiday card once a year, thanking me that for not imposing VAT, GST, sales taxes, capital gains taxes, withholding taxes on offshore income taxes, right? And then, if you just follow my simple rules, I honestly don't care. I don't have a dog in this hunt, right? Hong Kong people are famous for saying, make money laugh, right? Just don't cause trouble. Go make some money. And go buy a Mercedes or buy some real estate. That's how they get their big, right? They just don't care. It's not just about low taxes. It's about true freedom. And that starts with a Caesar that just says, this is a free market. I'm not going to compete with you. Korea cannot say that. China cannot say that. Certainly America, nowhere in Europe, nowhere in Russia or Singapore. Everybody wants to know everything. Everybody wants to know your business. Right? You're using telco here. You know how cheap it is to get broadband and mobile here. Think about whether a Hong Kong telco is going to care enough about sniffing your packets, about knowing everything you do, right? They can't afford it. Competition is so brutal, they're not buying layer 7 application content filter, routers from the hottest startup shops to give that information to the NSA. They don't care, and they can't, and the market's so efficient that chances are they don't have the gear, even if they wanted it. So, that's why I travel so much. Now I'm going to Taipei and KL and Singapore, because I think all roads for entrepreneurs should be here, but I truly believe in some of the fundamentals of Economics 101. One thing is comparative advantage. We love H1. We have a beautiful campus, nothing that we even want to compete with. And brilliant, creative people. That's not something I get so much in Lithuania. I get great architects and plumbers and code guys in Lithuania. If you look at the pockets of relative comparative advantage, you say, well, let's bring it all here to Hong Kong. Because we have the freedom to move people, money, and ideas. And again, the freedom to move ideas means being in a marketplace where people don't judge your idea. They just do whatever you want. You know, there is literally, in my humble opinion, there's literally not another marketplace that can give you that today.
So there are also some challenges, though. I mean, real estate's crazy.
Yes.
What are some of the other challenges entrepreneurs have to overcome here?
So I actually wrote a little article for Investment Journal on real estate thing. If your goal was to create one of these multi-level marketing scams like, you know, New York Life's annuity insurance stuff, right? This bullshit, right? Then you should worry about real estate. What do I mean by that? You want to have a bunch of overpriced scam artists, right, in one office, dial a dollar, right? So there, you're envisioning on having a long-term plan, 5, 10, 20 years.